Hello and welcome. My name is Dominic Frisby and I'm just drinking my cup of tea. Today we are talking birth rates, demographics, destiny and decline. Oh, and dumb economic models. Yet more reasons to ignore experts. So back in 2011, a landmark study by the United Nations Population Fund warned that the global population would reach 15 billion by the end of the century, putting, and I quote, a catastrophic strain on the planet's resources unless urgent action is taken to curb growth rates. Cue lots of subsidies, initiatives, hand-wringing, wasted money, damaging narratives, damaging policy, and articles in The Guardian. Here we are today, and suddenly the issue is population decline. By 2100, 97% of the world's countries will have a shrinking population, according to a study published in The Lancet, leading to, and I quote, staggering social change. The Telegraph followed with a ludicrously sensationalist headline, World Population to Fall for the First Time Since the Black Death. Cue, no doubt, lots more subsidies, initiatives, hand-wringing, wasted money, damaging narratives, damaging policy, though perhaps not so many articles in The Guardian. The last thing that publication wants is Westerners reproducing. Not white ones, anyway. The problem is economic modelling. It is wrong as often as it is right. Tossing a coin or consulting a psychic is just as reliable. Economic models commonly rely on extrapolating trends, which can work for a bit. Trend following is a highly effective investment strategy after all. But they are largely based on the assumption that current conditions will persist, when they usually don't, particularly when projecting decades out. Something unforeseen happens, such as lots of people making decisions an economist didn't expect, and this changes everything. Yet such flawed models, even though nothing more than projections that only carry more weight than Mystic Meg because they were delivered on a spreadsheet by a bloke with a PhD, become the basis for huge and expensive decisions by policymakers. We have seen it with climate change, with COVID, with economic policy, and with anything the OBR touches. The consequences are sometimes really harmful to people. Lockdown policy being the most obvious recent example. It was based on flawed data and it was deeply destructive. Net zero is the next one. Everyone can see it, and yet still policymakers persist. I was, broadly speaking, persuaded in the early noughties by the arguments that population growth was inevitable. I'm less persuaded by the idea that we will now see population decline, though perhaps I shouldn't be. Fertility rates are coming down. Globally, between 1950 and 2021, they fell by more than half, from 4.8 children to 2.2. And there is not a nation where they haven't fallen. Annual global births peaked at 142 million in 2016, falling to 129 million by 2021. But whatever, nobody knows what's going to happen. There could be a nuclear war and the population might sink below 1 billion. Global planning laws could be eased, just as the world abandons fiat money for gold and Bitcoin, with the result that house prices come down, just as people realise that seed oils, processed food and tap water have all been making them infertile, and as a result we suddenly get a population boom. So much of this is economic. In developing countries, people tend to have fewer children as they get richer and live longer. Irony of ironies, in the richer, developed world, the main reason people have fewer children is that they can't afford them. Italians, being Catholic, are associated with large families, or they used to be, and lots of brothers and sisters and cousins. But when Elon Musk, himself a prolific reproducer, go Elon, observed the other day that Italian birth rates hit their lowest level since the country was unified in 1861, he got this reply. You know why? Because it's too expensive. My friends can't handle it. They can't find part-time jobs. They can't find daycare centres. Daycares cost as much as a vacation in the Maldives. Diapers cost, food costs, paediatricians are very expensive, kids' sports are crazy, school books cost as if they were handwritten by Leonardo da Vinci. Vacations cost if the family expands. So what do? They don't have children. Ultimate saving. You know how much I love Italy, but for young mothers, it sucks. Period. So that was what she posted. The main reason people are not reproducing is expense. What is the biggest expense in your life? Your government, by a country mile. It takes roughly 50% of everything you will ever earn over the course of your life. The next biggest expense is a house, something few can afford. With less government and cheaper housing, Westerners would pretty quickly start reproducing again. But what government is going to stand for less of itself and cheaper houses? Not one that I can see, except maybe in Argentina. The idea that government is going to fix a problem of its own creation, please. It will only make it worse. I do know that stuff often happens for reasons we cannot explain. So the last thing we want is the planners meddling, especially with something as significant as this, when their models are so flawed. It doesn't matter if the global population goes up or down. Human beings will find a way of coping. Some people want kids, some don't. We always do find a way of coping. The last thing we need is more government intervention based on spurious data. So what if growth falls? GDP growth is a bogus measure anyway. Dim-witted, short-sighted obsession with GDP has been one of the major reasons mass immigration has gone so unchecked, if not encouraged, with such terrible consequences to local culture, history and tradition. Never mind locals' opportunity and earnings. GDP focuses on quantity, not quality. It neglects individual quality of life. It ignores income and wealth distribution. It ignores unaffordable housing and high levels of taxation. If anything, high house prices are seen as a good thing. It creates societies based around spending and consumption rather than making stuff and saving. It incentivizes government activity. Please, no more intervention and short-termism. There are other better measures, or better still, take the John James Cooperthwaite positive non-intervention route and ban the Office of National Statistics altogether. And if you don't know John James Cooperthwaite, or Cowperthwaite, he was Hong Kong's Adam Smith-loving financial secretary who oversaw Hong Kong's incredible growth in the second half of the 20th century. And his policy was based on the hidden hand, as he called it, positive non-intervention. Government staying out of it. When an African ambassador asked him how he would go about bringing Hong Kong levels of growth to an African nation, Cooperthwaite said the first thing he would do is ban the Office of National Statistics. After World War I, itself a monumental government cock-up which saw the death of countless young men across Europe, the number of boys born relative to girls increased. It happened after World War II as well. This phenomenon has been noticed so many times after wars that it now has its own name, the returning soldier effect. And all sorts of explanations have been posited, ranging from changing female hormones during wartime to divine intervention to a surprisingly persuasive argument that taller soldiers are more likely to survive battle and that taller parents are more likely to have sons. On the other hand, it could just be Mother Nature. There is plenty that Mother Nature gets up to that we don't even notice, let alone find a credible and proven explanation for. Yet she determines much of what we do without us even realising it. Our instincts come from Mother Nature. Our first instinct is survival, to find water, food, shelter for ourselves and then those close to us. Next is the survival of the species, the urge to have sex and reproduce with the best possible mate. These instincts come before nice houses, cars and clothes. But even the urge for those derives from a need for safety and to make ourselves look more desirable to a potential mate, aka Mother Nature. We are animals. At the birth of my children, I came away with the thought that a woman is nature's vessel, subservient to the species as a whole. So, back to population levels. It really would not surprise me to discover that some kind of natural law is at work, in the same way that plants talk to each other, and it will deal with the population issue way better than any government. But even if not, the human population will be what it is as a result of a plethora of individual decisions, many of which will be guided by Mother Nature, and many of which by economic circumstance. As the great man Cowperthwaite said, a multiplicity of individual decisions will produce a better and wiser result than a single decision by a government or by a board, with its inevitably limited knowledge of the myriad factors involved and its inflexibility. So please, let us keep positive law and meddlesome planners with flawed models out of this. Thank you very much for watching. I'll be back with another video very soon. Please subscribe to the channel. My first book and many readers' favourite, Life After the State, Why We Don't Need Government, is back in print. I will put links in the description. Buy it, listen to it. That's back in print thanks to the help of my buddy Chris P. Until next time, goodbye.